Welcome to Lineups and Lures. Join hosts Joe and Chris as they break down the biggest stories in professional and amateur sports and reel in the best fishing stories and tips. Whether it's game day strategy or the perfect catch, we've got you covered. Grab your gear and get ready. This is Lineups and Lures. NBA playoffs are in full swing. We had a barn burner the other night with a halftime score of 80-39. Some of the best basketball being played in the playoffs, right?
Well, that's a little unfair because I have actually watched a little bit here and there, and for the most part, I think there's been some pretty good hoops played, and I think the NBA is letting them play a little bit more, and I'm still not on Team NBA at this point, but the product's been better.
I agree. They've definitely been letting them play to almost too much. You know, the players and the coaches are starting to complain a little bit about how the game is so different in the playoffs, the way it's officiated, but it's always been that way. It's always been a more physical game, and when the Blazers used to make the playoffs, they'd always spend those first, 2-3 games just completely complaining to the officials. Like, why is that not a foul? He touched me. He looked at me. Should be a foul. Well, boys, this is the playoffs. We don't call that. And so it's kind of nice to see that physicality coming back.
Yeah, I think the today's day and age of NBA player, let's just say maybe don't have the physicality traits of yesteryear, shall we say.
Yeah, very true. But there's kind of some interesting things going on. So tonight the Knicks beat the Celtics to take a 3-1 lead over in the East. And you got Indy with a 3-1 lead over Cleveland. So the number 1 seed is in danger of going down. That's pretty wild over there. You would think the Celtics and the Cavs were pretty much locks for the Eastern Conference Finals, and they're going to have to both come back from 3-1 deficits to get there.
Well, that and Boston's got a little problem with their best player leading with an injury at the end of that game too. So, yeah, I think the other thing is that New York squad is stacked, and I didn't really realize how good that roster was until I watched a couple of playoff games and was just like, they got him too? Wait, they got him too? I mean, that's a well put together roster, and I think it might actually be deeper. It might not have the frontline talent of a Jason Tatum and a Jaylen Brown. I mean, don't get me wrong, they've got some very good players, but Jason Tatum is in the conversation for league MVP every year. No, that Knicks team is very, very well-rounded and healthy.
Well, and I think that makes a difference, right? That's why Boston's probably struggling so much, is they're not healthy.
Well, that's the same, that's just professional. That's all sports. If you're healthy at the business end of the season, you're in a lot better spot than, those that aren't. So sometimes you need a little luck. Sometimes, the ball bounces your way. And, It actually hasn't been horrible on a Tuesday night at 9:00 at night and just winding down the day and watching the third, fourth quarter of a game hasn't been completely terrible.
Yeah, but when it's 80-39 at halftime, you're not even watching the second half.
Well, no, you don't watch that one.
But I just don't understand how that happens in the NBA playoffs. Regular season, sure, rest, all that kind of stuff, but man, we're talking playoffs. We should not be having a 40-point blowout in the playoffs.
No, I agree with you. And, I don't think the NBA wants to see that either. However, sometimes things happen and, whether it be some foul trouble and sometimes the ball just keeps going in and sometimes at the other end of the floor, the garbage can lid's on the hoop and nothing's going in. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's not good to see, but even in a playoff baseball game, once in a while, you'll get a 12-1 game or something, and, it just happens. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you look at the ratings competitor right now with the NHL playoffs, and you got Vegas scoring a game-winning goal with 0.4 of a second left. Just dynamic, exciting games, a lot of overtime action. Continues to build my point that the NHL playoffs are the best playoffs around. Let's talk about the Western Conference, though. We got a barn burner going on between the 1 and the 4 seed, Oklahoma City and Denver. Definitely still a Denver fan in this one. Don't want to see Oklahoma City make it any further.
Well, I think this is just a classic old bull, young bull matchup, right? You've got the young up and coming, and then you've got the veteran, and we'll see who wins out on this one. You know, obviously great teams both ways. Is Jokic still the best player in basketball, and can he take him to the promised land, or is Shea and his band of merry men, have they caught up? I mean, I think they are a team that for the next 10 years, we're going to be looking at OKC is there or thereabouts every year. Barring poor management of their salary cap, which I highly doubt because their GM is very, very good. Yeah, so they're gonna be around. This is not their last shot. Quite frankly, this is just the beginning of their runway. So, yeah, no, it's just like I said. You've got multiple league MVP winner, and a great team, well coached, good organization against another good organization. So that's what you see at this time of year, as you should.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good. It's good basketball. It's good for the NBA. And the other thing that's good for the NBA is you got Golden State still in there with injured Steph hanging on. They're down 2-1 with Game 4 tonight, but that's a good series too. Those have been pretty competitive games, and that Jimmy Butler trade is really paying off for Golden State right now.
I think everybody won that trade. That was for whatever reason, Jimmy and Miami had a fallout. He is one of those guys that people pay their money for the ticket to go see play at the business end of the year. That's hey, good for the game at this point. I mean, long term, I still don't like seeing these monster trades at the deadline, but it's a product of the environment we live in today, and at least you get to see a competitive series. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, hopefully all four of these series, especially the Eastern Conference, hopefully they can get back into that, at least take it out to 6 or 7 games, make it interesting. Nobody wants to see a 4-1 sweep in the conference semifinals. This summer, level up your game at Portland Baseball Club's summer camps. Every Tuesday and Thursday, join us from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. for skill-building sessions in pitching, hitting, fielding, and more. At just $60 per day, you'll get expert coaching and personalized instruction in a fun and competitive environment. Whether you're a seasoned player or just starting out, Portland Baseball Club summer camps are perfect for all skill levels. Spots will fill up fast. Register today at portlandbaseballclub.com. NBA draft lottery was tonight, and Dallas, with a 1.8% chance, picked up the number 1 pick. Cooper Flagg, welcome to Dallas.
So are we going to have the conspiracy theory after the whole Luka to Lakers, and magically now Dallas just picked up the best player coming out of college in what a lot of analysts consider a long, long time? I mean, is this just Adam Silver, sitting there pulling the strings going, Los Angeles, enormous market. Dallas, enormous television market.
Well, let's also not forget that Paige Buchers went to the Dallas WNBA team with the number 1 overall pick there as well. So they've gotten the number 1 pick in both the NBA and WNBA. I think they want to see basketball succeed in Dallas. I don't think they want to see a dip in that market. I think there's definitely a conspiracy to be discussed here.
Obviously, us peons will probably never know, and for the sake of just the sport and in general, I hope that wasn't the case. And the question begs to be asked. And yeah, I mean, it would have been one thing if Dallas was a 14% ping pong ball. You go, okay, fair enough. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, how San Antonio ends up with that number 2 pick, and the tanking Utah Jazz didn't even finish in the top 5. I mean, what does that do for other teams looking to tank? I mean, that's, I think, 2 years in a row that the worst team in the NBA didn't even get like a top 3 pick.
Well, look, the NBA is obviously trying to address the tanking situation. I mean, the play-ins were obviously designed to at least lower and or minimize the amount of teams that were tanking. the other thing that I would say is that even teams that are quote unquote tanking, and I think we kind of saw this a little bit in Portland this year, where you had a bunch of young kids, a bunch of maybe quote unquote journeyman type players that don't have these, $100, $200 million contracts, and they're playing for a job. And we saw it in Portland where I think we were on the tank, and yet these kids started playing well and started gelling, and all of a sudden it was, well, the tank's gone, so let's go win now. And that can happen too. I do like what the NBA's done with the play-in. Even though I don't like the play-in, I understand it's their way to combat tanking. But I also think there maybe needs to be a revisit in the whole, look, I'm going to say this again, and I'm going to hop on it. You've heard me say this before. Why is the NFL the greatest product in professional sports? Because the way it works is there is no ping pong ball. You literally, if you finish last, you get the first pick, and it's a snake draft all the way from there. And that means that if you have that horrible season, in 2 to 3 years, you're a playoff team. That's the way that works. And I would still argue for that type of system in the NBA. I believe that the product as a whole trumps big market teams. And unfortunately, with the NBA right now, we're seeing, with obviously OKC being the exception, but they are a product of some phenomenal draft moves and building through the draft. But they're the exception, not the rule. Pretty much every other team in the playoffs is coming out of a pretty major market with ownership willing to pay luxury taxes. And I think that hurts the product in general. It's definitely hurt the product for me, and that's why I'm no longer a supporter or a season ticket holder. And I think that's the bigger question. However, for the time being, it is what it is. So there you go.
Yeah, I think it's a lot harder in the NBA to draft a starter. I think in the NFL, you see teams turn around a lot faster because, almost every single NFL team has at least one rookie starting on one side of the ball, if not both. And in the NBA...
No. In the NFL, you're pretty much through your 4th, 5th round picks. They're playing. Yeah. They're playing meaningful minutes.
But the NBA, if you're a decent team, you don't have a rookie starting. Your rookie's the 8th or 9th guy. So
that's okay. So let's have a bigger discussion here, because here's where I would argue that the NCAA should go back just like football and baseball does. You play 3 years in college. Let's improve the college product, and then now you do have players that are ready to go because they're 21 instead of 18.
Well, that's going to happen naturally because I can go be the number 1 overall pick in the NBA and make, I don't know what the number is, we'll say $3 million, and I can stay in college and make 10. So why would I leave college early?
No, I think you've got your numbers wrong there. I think Cooper Flagg's going to make something like 11 mil his first year, and then 15, 18, 21. It's a lot. If the NBA slots for those top 5, 10, 15 picks, it's a lot more than you're going to get in the NIL.
Yeah, I think my numbers are a little bit off, but the idea is there that I think a lot of these players are still going to make more money with NIL deals than they are going to make in the NBA. So why not stick it out? The guy that would have come out after 2 years is now going to stay that 3rd year. So it's going to improve the college product, more parity in the league, and then they're better prepared when they get to the NBA. That's my argument.
Just to give you an idea, so Scoot, who was the 3rd round pick 2 years ago, made 10.2 this year, 10.7 next year, 13.5 in 26-27, and his qualifying offer, that is his choice, is $19 million. So, you look at Klingon's numbers, 7, 7, 7, 9, 13. You're not getting that kind of NIL money. Quarterbacks don't even get close to that.
No, that's true.
So if you're in, what's the top QB going to make this year? 3.5, 4? I think that's the best QB in the SEC, or a Notre Dame, or a USC, or an Oregon. So, hoops players aren't making that kind of scratch. They don't have that budget.
I think the top guys are. Cooper Flagg, I was trying to see how much he made this year. I'm sure he made a pretty penny. But you're still looking at guys that are freshmen, sophomores looking to $400,000 to $1 million. I mean, they're still getting paid more than they would be getting paid in the NBA.
Yeah, but I think the money isn't what I want to focus on here. I think it's more of a product situation. College basketball would be so much better if you could have those big programs going, hey, we got these guys as a freshman, and then we're going to see them as a sophomore and a junior. And as a fan of, college sports, you get to kind of grow with those guys and watch them progress. And then they get to go play in the big leagues. And instead of having, even just look at our Blazers, right? I mean, between Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot, Donovan Clingan, I think all of these guys have got a long career ahead of them in the NBA. But the first 2-3 seasons for all of them have been pretty rough because they're just not ready. And if they would have had 2 more years in college and would have come out a little more polished, a little more physically developed, a little more, ready to play, my opinion.
Well, look at a guy like Myers Leonard back in the day. 1 year of college basketball. He comes into the league, and I mean, he's pretty physical, but he wasn't ready to play in the NBA. But he took 2-3 years, and then he became a respectable on-court NBA player.
A rotation player.
Yes. And now with the NIL money, I think that's incentivizing people to not come out as a freshman, to stick in there for, another year or two. And then they come out and now they can contribute in the NBA.
Well, and also you throw in the portal and the fact that maybe they go play at a smaller D1 program as a freshman so they can get on the floor. And then they make the transfer to an SEC, Big Ten, ACC, et cetera, and make their money and, progress. And then they become a undrafted rookie. And instead of being an undrafted rookie, they go into as a, late first, second round pick, guaranteed contract, and also ready to contribute the minute they walk in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think makes the college game better and hopefully will make the NBA a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, selfishly as a fan, I mean, I'd love to see. I mean, you think about like that, the Juwan Howard, Michigan Final Four, and the players that were on that team. Those guys were NBA ready at that point. I mean, I'd like how good would it be to see those Final Fours again? I mean, where you've got teams that have got 3-4 NBA ready players on their roster. I mean, I might actually sit down and watch it again.
Hey there, I'm Chad with Jackson Painting and Remodel, and if you're looking to give your home a fresh new look, you've come to the right place. Whether you need a bold new color for your living room or a fresh coat to brighten up your home's exterior, my team and I have got you covered. We specialize in both indoor and outdoor painting, using only the best materials to make sure your space looks amazing and stands the test of time. If you're ready to transform your home, visit jacksonpainting.com. I'd love to come by, chat about your ideas, and give you a free estimate. At Jackson Painting and Remodel, we don't just paint, we make your vision a reality. Again, visit jacksonpainting.com or call 503-620-2600.
So last week we talked about what the situation in Milwaukee and Giannis and, the pipe dream of him coming to Portland. I hear you got some thoughts on that maybe you don't think it's as much of a joke as you did when we first talked about it.
Well, I think the situation has changed because Giannis has come out and said, I am going to explore my options. He has not said he wants to trade, but with Damian Lillard being on the shelf essentially at least next year, and who knows what he's going to come back as a mid to late 30s guard who, if he loses speed and a step, he's going to be a shadow of his former self. Giannis is 30. He's in that window, and he wants to win. And I don't believe he owes Milwaukee anything. He's been very loyal. He's been there, 9-10 seasons, brought him a championship. And I don't think Milwaukee did anything by him, too. They went out and got dudes. I mean, they went and got dudes for him.
Twice.
They made the trade for Lillard. They did everything right, too. So I don't think there's a blame on either side here. But what's changed in this situation is, unfortunately, Milwaukee is now hamstrung because they've got $60 million of contract that they can't get rid of, and they're done. They can't swallow that. They can't trade away. They can't get draft picks. They just got to eat this one. So Giannis wants to win because I mean, I'm not saying he's not going to play well into his mid-30s, but how many more seasons as a big man does he have at the elite level? 2, 3, before he becomes a back of the rotation all-star to just a rotation player. So I think he's looking at that going, I got 2 or 3 at elite level, maybe 5 or 6 at a Pro Bowl level. So I get it.
I think it makes sense. I think Milwaukee kind of has to do it, and I think they're really thankful that he's open to exploring a trade option. But how do you bring him to Portland? What's your move?
Well, Milwaukee needs to understand that with Lillard being down and if Giannis walks, it's time to rebuild. That means draft picks. And Portland has an absolute ton of them.
Yeah, we don't need them.
We don't need them anymore. We got our kids. We need we need a superstar. I think there's potentially one superstar on our roster, and I think there's potentially 2 or 3, maybe all-stars here, there, maybe not perennial all-stars, but, we'll see what happens with Klingon. Scoot is still young. I think Shaedon Sharpe is the guy that could really elevate to the next level, but he's not ready yet. Avia had a great run, but let's not kid ourselves here. Let's not do the Portland thing where we overvalue our players. Denny Avia is Nicholas Batum 2.0. Let's just keep it what it is. He had a nice run, but when we bring it, if Sharpe is the next guy, if Scoot's that guy, we're gonna, Simons is gone at the, this summer, or at least by the trade deadline. So we need a superstar. I start looking at Milwaukee going, Simons is 25 years old. There's talent there. They also are going to need to offset some cap. So if we look at maybe, throwing in Jeremy Grant and or DeAndre Ayton plus 2, 3 first-round picks and Simons, that's the making of a trade where it's a win for everybody. We get the superstar. They get first-round picks. They get they can spin DeAndre or Grant to a contender for additional picks. So, people are going to say, why would they want Jeremy Grant? They don't want Jeremy Grant. They want the first-round pick they're going to get for Jeremy Grant. Why do they want Ayton? They don't want Ayton. They want the first-round pick they're going to get for Ayton. And all of a sudden, now they're sitting on 5 or 6, 7 first-round picks in the next 2, 3 seasons, and that's how they can rebuild a ball club. That's how I think it works.
Yeah, just look at Oklahoma City. That's exactly what they did. They got rid of Harden. They got rid of Durant. They got rid of Westbrook. And they brought in a bunch of picks, and here they are, 5 years later, the number 1 team in the Western Conference. So that's definitely the model.
And look, it's one of those rare situations where it makes sense for both ball clubs. And that's where a trade of this magnitude happens, where it makes sense for both teams. Now, the only problem is Portland ain't the only team having this conversation right now.
Well, I think there's just about every team is having this conversation. But I got to tell you, after what happened today, I think the Spurs are really having this conversation because they got that number 2 pick. Could you imagine Giannis and Wemby together? Holy cow.
Yeah, sounds a lot like David Robinson and Tim Duncan. Oh, I don't want to see that.
Well, Pop in the GM or whatever front office role he's taken over, he might be trying to rebuild that.
Well, it worked out pretty well first time.
Yeah, I got to imagine that a deal goes down within the next 6 weeks. I think it's going to happen before the draft. I think that makes the most sense for Milwaukee because if you are going to rebuild, I think you can try to get a first rounder this year and give yourself a chance to start that rebuild right away. So should be an interesting next 6 weeks as we go through all the draft combines and kind of see how this all shakes out. Enjoyed Lineups and Lures? Like, share, and rate the show to help us grow. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening, and catch you next time on Lineups and Lures.